Thank you, Tim. Okay, we now have an opportunity for questions to any of the speakers, or indeed to all of the speakers if you want to ask the whole panel a question. Brian's first with his hands up, but I'm going to go to Christine first because Brian's been asking a lot of questions.
Sorry, Brian. Question for Tim really on that last presentation, because you talked about unforeseen costs in getting a company to develop an app for you. I think they're mainly seen costs because we can plan them in advance. What I was interested in is it sounded as if you were saying that developing it yourself is free, and of course it isn't, because you've got massive developer costs to pay for. So it isn't anything free, it's just that the costs are different.
Do I need to push this? Yeah, you're quite right, but the...
Leave it with... No,
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, you're absolutely right. There is a massive developer cost. Saying that, creating it as an open source community project, we believe we have done a large part of that already. So, for example, with Oxford Brookes, they're hiring one person full-time to do the development. Now, this is not to say that everybody needs one person full-time to manage it. The idea is the larger it becomes, the more work that's already done for you. So, for example, the LDAP connector, that's going to be usable at pretty much every institution in this room, I'd imagine. Same goes with the Z3950. So once those things are done, they're done. The only thing that really needs to change it may be styling to a certain extent, but you can effectively, if you have some free time for a developer, you could get them to download it, install it, make a few tweaks and have it running in an hour. So that's the way we're looking at it. You're absolutely right. There is a cost. There is a cost in developing it from scratch and so on. But once the project gathers pace, as we think it has done now, that cost becomes lower and lower for every institution involved.
Can I just say, I did not expect to hear Z3950 mentioned during this particular event. Brian.
A question for everyone, and Chris. We've seen some great examples of institutions doing some innovative stuff with mobiles, and some of this has been funded by just rapid innovation money. But I wondered, in the light of new government and the forthcoming budget, whether it's the right model to do this on an institutional basis. We will be hearing the men from the ministry, whatever ministry that's going to be, will be saying, where are the benefits in terms of centralised services? So is anybody giving any thought to a more centralised approach to this, which seems to be carrying on the traditional institutional approach to development? I'm not really, you know.
I can't actually see you. Where are you? Hello.
I was going to make a comment. I think if you're looking for shared services, you're looking at the wrong end of the innovation spectrum here. I think it's really difficult to do shared stuff when it's all the new, different, difficult, unpredictable end of things. So if you were looking for shared services, I wouldn't start with this stuff, would be my recommendation.
One thing which I didn't really mention very much was the MOLI system is divided into two parts. One is this data aggregator and manipulator, and the other is the web UI. They are actually distinct entities. And what that means is that you could actually just run the aggregator in a university, and that would provide RESTful services for pretty much everything, which in turn can run a more centralized system. But I think within an institution, you probably have to have some layer of abstraction before you get to a national level.
Something I was harping on about earlier was data, which I think Brian will probably agree with me on. But what do we do with that data? For example, something like Google Maps is just there. It does all sorts of clever things. People are aware with it. If we can get our data into Google Maps, we don't need our own institution's app. It's just usable and everybody already knows how to use it.
In the context of the iBorrow project, because we're using Sting client, we're using application virtualization, so it means that when we're delivering software, we can make a once-only change rather than many. So there is that side to it. We do have the issue in terms of trying to replicate that project on, say, the main campus, because we have a bounded space with Augustine House, whereas the main campus is a bit open, and we've got issues about security and collecting and so on and so forth. So I think we're tackling some of those sort of issues you're raising, but I think they're not going to be easy ones to resolve.
Any other questions? I have a question I was going to ask Simon, but I think actually it applies to all of you, and it's where do you go next? How are you taking forward these different activities? So Simon first.
We've been talking with a number of vendors, and we're planning to do the same kind of things as we've seen from other people in terms of running some services. I think we see it very much as not an end game, but a starting point. It's a learning experience as much for us as it is for our end users on this. So again, you know, this idea that this would be something that you could define and share, I find quite hard. So yes, we're expecting to do that, and actually it's really quite challenging, because some of the things that people want, I know we can't deliver because we haven't got the data in the right places in the right ways. So there's a whole series of challenges, and I think we need to all learn from this and move forward along that learning curve.
Okay. Tim?
One of the approaches we started with was actually hitting the social data first. So we have things like a full pub listing for Oxford. Now that's provided through OpenStreetMap. One of the great things about doing it that way is that we started off with having very, very few services at all. We're only just about to launch the customized services because it takes this long to get the agreement from relevant departments, etc. But what we found was we launched it, we created these fairly basic services, and all of a sudden we had people ringing up and saying, can we get involved? Can we give our data? Can we have a careers service that alerts our students when there's a careers fair? Can we have an admissions guide that's geosensitive, so it will automatically plot your route around the university and give you relevant podcasts, etc., etc. So now we've got this platform which people are wanting to be part of, and that's sort of won the hearts and minds in that way. But in terms of generic, what are we doing next? It's all about customization to the user, I think. That's the biggest deal. So we want to be able to have a user's complete course information, be able to provide reminders, be able to say, okay, you need to go from this building to this building, you're a wheelchair user, we will give you an accessible route and give you photographs, information from one ramp to the other in a different building, for example. Okay. And there's a massive number of things that can be done, but that's, please do talk to me afterwards if you want to know any more details.
Okay, thanks Tim. Wayne?
I think where Christchurch is going, we have 5 campuses sort of dotted around Kent, so I think we could probably replicate the iBorough project in the learning spaces and the libraries there. The other thing we're thinking of doing is taking our model and our experiences and sharing it with the wider HE sector. So one of the obstacles we had to face with is this notion of, because we're collecting data, we have this tension between ethics and data protection concerns that, again, we can share with you if you're interested.
Okay, thanks. And Nick?
Okay, where are we going next? We've got principles, we've got strategies, but what we're doing is driven by what our academics want and by what our students want. And everything we do at the moment, we have to deliver very quickly, as Chris was saying earlier. We need to do something in months. And some of the things we do centrally, we are amazed by the demand that then comes from the departments and from the students. So we recently launched a YouTube channel, and suddenly all this video that's already out there within the university we didn't know about comes flooding towards us, and this is amazing. So we're going to be responding to those requirements, in particular from the students, because they're a lot further ahead of us, I think.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
I was just going to, I hope this isn't a flippant comment, but bearing in mind we are in a new political and economic landscape, the BBC's just reported that Cameron's coalition has banned mobile phones from the cabinet. So I'm not quite sure how government will view mobile phone usage in the classroom.
Oh, well. Anyone else? Okay, well, can we say thank you to our 4 lightning talk presenters?